Hi good lifers, welcome back to the channel. Imagine that you've just taken on your brand new allotment that you have been waiting years to have, or maybe you've just moved into a house with a really big garden and you've got a blank canvas in front of you. This video is about the 5 mistakes that I made as a brand new allotment holder that I'm hoping that you are not going to make, and that I'm also not going to make in the next few months. More on that later. My name's Nikki, welcome to Back to the Good Life. We got our allotment in November 2022. It was incredibly overgrown when we got it. It was really, really lovely, but it was incredibly overgrown. This is my new allotment. And yes, I know that it needs a lot of work. But at least I have a shed. It's a private allotment, so it's costing us a fortune a month, but we're quite enjoying it. And for all of our American followers, basically we have very small gardens, as you can see here in my little tiny garden, and an allotment is a patch of land that we use that's not on our property and not owned by us, but we're allowed to grow things on it. So we're quite lucky with ours because it's a private one that we can do basically whatever we like with it within reason. I was hoping to have chickens on there, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, we've got an allotment. It's about 9-minute drive away from our house, so it's quite close, but it's still an effort to get there, which is something that is definitely on my list of things I would like to change, but more on that later. So when we first got our allotment, I was absolutely full of the joys of spring and ready to jump in and do lots and lots of things to it. But there were definitely a few things or a few mistakes that I made that I should have been a little bit more wary of, and I should have planned a little bit more in advance. So the first one is not actually having a plan for my allotment. I'm going to explain this one because I've always talked about the fact that I have a garden plan. It looks about something like this. And I do. I've always had a planting plan. It's just the reason I do square foot gardening and the reason I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. But what I didn't have was a plan of the actual work that needs doing on the allotment. So planting plan is great and it's beautiful and it's working out lovely, but I didn't actually have a plan of what work needed doing. So that meant that every time I kind of went down there, I was a little bit just, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I had loads of stuff in my head, like I need to get these things planted, but I don't have anywhere to plant them because I hadn't actually planned to, build the beds, which now I think about it sounds a bit daft. But this is something that I want you guys to really think about. So I did a video a few weeks ago on half-an-hour allotment jobs. And one of the things I said right at the beginning of the video was spend a few minutes when you get down to your allotment, or when you get into your garden, if your garden is your allotment, and actually write down some of the jobs that you need to do straight away. This would be really helpful, and I wish I'd started doing this at the beginning, and now I do it religiously. I go in and straight away I'm writing down, having a quick glance around, and then I can sort of prioritise what's really important, what needs doing, what doesn't need doing. We don't have unlimited funds, so it's a case of sometimes I think, okay, I need to build this, or I need to buy this, and I need to organise this. It's going to cost this amount of money. When can I do it by? So that's something that in the next place that we go to, I'm going to really try and be a little bit more strict on. Try and make sure that when we go to the allotment or we go into the garden or whatever, I actually have a plan of not only what I need to do today, but a works plan for later on. That's going to allow me to save up for things, it's going to allow me to organise things, find things, that kind of stuff. Simple things like, where am I going to get the wood from for the next raised bed? It's like, it's all very well me planning in 10 raised beds, but if I haven't got the wood for 10 raised beds, or I haven't got the money to buy the compost for the 10 raised beds, that puts that plan further in the future than it should be. So tip number 1 is always try and have an actual works plan for your allotment, not just a planting plan, because that will help you to realise your dreams. And I know you have dreams for your allotment and your garden, and I want you to achieve them. So that's what I'm hoping that you can do. So mistake number 2 kind of follows on from mistake number 1, to be honest. One of the problems that I have is not only did I not have a work plan, but I also didn't have a plan of like the tools and things that I needed. And what that meant was that for some reason in my head I decided that I probably just didn't need all of the tools that I actually really did need. So it took me absolutely ages to buy a battery powered strimmer. Battery's dead, even the second one. Oh, well, I've done a little bit today. Definitely doesn't look like it, but at least I've got something to show for it, and I will go home and charge up these batteries, and then hopefully bring them back on a day when it's not peeing it down with rain, which doesn't look very likely in the next few days, and I can get the rest of it done. But overall, quite happy with this. It's not the world's most powerful trimmer, but it does the job, so I'm happy. I like the battery powered trimmer I have at the moment because it's easy to use, it's quick, it's simple, it's actually very light. It's not the world's greatest trimmer, but it does probably about 80% of the work that we need to do. So it took me ages to buy one, and what that just basically meant was that the weeds just kept growing and growing and growing, and the grass kept growing and growing. So every time I went down to the allotment, it looked like a jungle, and it just made me feel more and more annoyed that it looked bad and I wasn't actually doing anything to stop it looking bad. As soon as I got a strimmer and I spent a few hours actually properly trimming the place and getting the weeds under control, it made a massive difference. And I kind of sat back and I was like, why didn't I do that to begin with? Like, they're not that expensive. I know I had to save up a bit, but like, they're not that expensive. So yeah, making a plan to actually get the tools that was needed was a mistake that I didn't do. So now I have a battery powered trimmer and a battery powered saw. Like, I know that I can saw things by hand, but they'll be really wonky, it'll take me forever, and I'm not going to do it. So a battery powered jigsaw has made a world of difference and has been really useful. I've also invested in tools that will take the same battery, so I just take 3 of the same battery down to the allotment and I can just chop and change between them, which is super useful. Other things that I already had, like I already had a shovel, I already had a hoe, that kind of thing, gardening gloves. It's those things that are easy to think about, but it's like the bigger tools. So that's a mistake I would say definitely don't make. Definitely think about the slightly bigger tools that you're going to need and plan to invest in them. So think about the things you'll need first. I would recommend the first big tool that you get is a strimmer, because it will make the world of difference to those big weeds. So mistake number 2 was waiting too long to get the tools that I really did need for my allotment. Okie dokie, we are on to mistake number 3. So mistake number 3 was not getting somewhere to sit down installed at the allotment from day one. So let me explain that one. It might sound a bit lazy, but I wholeheartedly believe that your allotment or your garden should be somewhere that you enjoy being. And if you're thinking to yourself, right, I'm going to spend a few hours down the allotment, I'm going to do some work down there, most of us are not going to spend, like, let's say 3 solid hours doing work down at your allotment. I know there's a bit of controversy about this on some of the Facebook groups I'm on, but let's be realistic. Most of us are doing this as a hobby, or we're doing it because we enjoy what we're doing and we actually want to enjoy and relax while we're down there. So you're not going to spend your entire hours long block just doing work most of the time. So I think it's really important to have an area of your garden or your allotment where you can just chill out and have a bit of a relax. Have a cup of tea or, coffee for coffee drinkers. Hot chocolate is a good one for me in the winter. Somewhere that you can just sit and relax for a few minutes, especially as well in the summer when it's really hot. Somewhere you can just sit down, have a drink, catch your breath a bit, and then go back and do whatever you're doing. So it took me ages to go out and buy a picnic table, because for some reason I had it in my head that they were really expensive, or that I don't know. I don't even know why it took me ages, to be honest. They're not cheap, like, I'll give you that, but it's an investment. And again, you can stain the wood, keep it going for a bit longer as well, which I highly recommend. But putting my picnic table down at the allotment was such a good revelation to me. Now I can sit down, I can chill out for a few minutes, then I can get on with what I'm doing, come back, sit down and chill out, answer a few messages, do a bit of Instagramming, as you do, all those important things that we do when we're down there. But yeah, this is something that I really have found important, is to have somewhere to sit and chill out. Also, it means that if you have allotment friends, or you have people that you're inviting down to your plot to see it and to congratulate you and all the rest of it, you got somewhere that you can all sit down and chill out, have a little barbecue, that kind of thing. I think it's really important to have an area that we leave for a bit of relaxation. So mistake number 3 was not getting somewhere to sit soon enough. So that's something that I'll be doing straight away in a new place. Okay, mistake number 4 was not planning when I'm going to go down to the allotment. So I talked about not planning the work that I was going to do and not planning in to actually get the tools that I'm going to need. This is another planning one, was not actually devoting a specific amount of time to go to my allotment. Now, if you are retired or if you don't work for some reason or you work more part-time than I do, this is probably not a mistake that you're going to have to worry about too much. But what I have found is that I really need to block out time in my day to go, right, I'm going to go down to the allotment. I can't get down there every day, and I'll be honest about that. I work full-time, far too many hours most of the time, but I try and finish work about 3 o'clock on Fridays. I've organised my work schedule so I can do that. So from about 3:30 onwards, I can go down to the allotment. I can really block out time. I do try and spend a few hours down there in the weekend as well. And when it's really, really warm and it's light, I can go there after work as well. There's a few days a week that I finish about 5:30, so I can go down there while it's light there and do some weeding and watering and that kind of stuff. So I found that's something that I should have done from day one, is actually block out time in my diary to actually say, right, this is the point that I'm going. I'm going to be a little bit fairer to myself here. I've had a little bit of a tumultuous job situation over the last couple of years, which I won't bore you with, but I'm now in a job that I know my hours. I'm actually very comfortable with the hours that I'm doing, and I realise when I can get down there. I had great ideas, I'll go down in the morning because some days I start in the afternoon, and to be honest, I'm not a morning person. That's never going to happen. So it's pointless me trying to block that time out when I know I'm not going to do it. So it's much better for me to say, right, what days and what times am I actually going to go, and stick to those rather than try and set myself up for failure. So set yourself up for wins rather than failure. So tip number 4 was not blocking out the right amount of time to go down to the allotment. And this one should be a lot easier in the future. So we are on to mistake number 5. The last mistake I definitely made, and it pains me to say this greatly. I actually have an allotment that's too big. I know, I didn't want to say it. And if G ever watches this video, he's going to be like, I told you so. No, when we got our allotment, we had a choice between one that was very small and one that was very big. There wasn't really an in-between choice, of which I'm incredibly grateful for. Don't get me wrong, I know people spend years on waiting lists and you basically just get whatever plot you're given. So all of this, you have a choice. Most of the time we don't. But yeah, so the plot I got is the massive one, and it needed a lot of work. We also got it the November before we got married in the May, so I kind of underestimated how much effort it takes to plan a wedding and make a wedding dress and all of that kind of stuff. So I have to say I did not do the best with my allotment in the first year. I abandoned it for a couple of months while I was busy making a wedding dress and doing all sorts of other bits and pieces. So the plot I have is huge, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's very, very, very weedy. It wasn't in a great state when it was left. It's also in a very windy spot, as you have seen in previous videos. So that's a mistake that we made, was picking something that was actually too big. Having said that, I think the smaller one would have felt too small for me. So I kind of think we picked the right plot, but it was also too big. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So this is not really something that we can fix in the future, but it's definitely something that we can be mindful of. So yeah, our allotment's quite big. When I got it, I hoped that it would be something that we would both do together, so that, yeah, kind of share the workload. That hasn't worked out because the allotment is not G's happy place. So it is just me doing it all by myself, and I don't have a huge amount of time. So all of those things kind of come together. I'm not making excuses for myself, but I am just saying there are reasons behind why our allotment does not look as Instagrammable as some of the other allotments. This is what Instagrammers don't show you. The allotment looking like some sort of desolate wasteland for a little while. But we are right at the beginning of spring, probably not even in spring yet. So it will get better, I promise. Namely the ones next to us and opposite us. They look absolutely beautiful, and Inga, if you're watching, your allotments look really beautiful. I'm incredibly jealous, but I appreciate that you put a lot of work into them, so well done to you. But ours looks like a jungle. a lot of the time. But hopefully it's looking a lot better this year than it did last year. So yeah, that was mistake number 5, getting a plot that's actually slightly too big for me to manage on my own. Okay, I hope they helped you out. So all the way through this video I've been kind of alluding to the fact that there are future plans. I can't go into a huge amount of detail about it right now, which is a bit sad, because everything's kind of in that stage of like, it's decided but it's not quite signed, and it's excited. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks to get a little bit of clarity on it, but the general gist of it is the moving plans are definitely in the works. There might be somewhere that we've found. It's very exciting. It will mean that I'm giving up my allotment, which is heartbreaking, but it also means that my allotment is now going to move into my garden. So that's going to make life a bit easier, because it's literally just going to be outside my doorstep. There's going to be a huge amount of work to do in that garden. If we get the property that we're looking at, there's a huge amount of work to do. It's very difficult to explain the garden, but if we get the property that we're looking at, it's still an if, but it's slightly closer to being a when than an if. If we get the property we're looking at, I'll do a proper tour and everything and show you around, and then hopefully you can follow on our journey where we actually turn it from overgrown jungle into something that's really workable. I've got some really exciting plans as well, which may or may not include a natural swimming pool. I'm really excited about that, so stick along. But yeah, we've got a few months to kind of get things prepared, get things ready. If all goes well, it should be kind of more towards the late autumn, winter time, which to be honest is kind of the perfect time, I would say, for garden renovations, because it means I can kind of get the soil ready and ready to go. So I'm really looking forward to that. So hopefully these 5 mistakes that I have made, I won't make in the next place. I will be slightly more organised and slightly more planned ahead, not just planning. That's the plan anyway. So hopefully you can join us for that. We will see. I'll try and keep you updated as well, which will be great fun. And other than that, it has been lovely to have you along. I'm hoping to do a live stream at the end of the month, this month. I don't know what about yet. I'll find out. I'll put it in the description below or something. But yeah, check out some of my other videos. YouTube thinks you might like this one, so give that a try. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.